Oregon's now an underdog against Ohio State. That's ridiculous. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you have not already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to or watch this show. Big shout out to the everydayers out there who tune in, as the name implies, every single day. Lots to get to. Brian Smith later on the show, breaking down Dierre Hill Jr. at the running back spot and a couple other recruiting names to know. But something that caught my eye in a negative but kind of surprising way, the line has flipped for Oregon, Ohio State. October 12th will be a massive day in college football. Oregon, Ohio State has a great chance, though it's not set in stone, has a great chance to be college game day. It is certainly the best opportunity for Oregon to be on college game day this year. None of their non-conference games are going to get that done. Michigan maybe, depending on what the schedule looks like. But Oregon, Ohio State will be one of the biggest college football games of the year. And for a while, Oregon has been favored by just 1.5 points. They're now underdogs by 1.5 points. So 3 points? You tell me Ohio State and Oregon had a 3-point swing in the spring window when Oregon added Derek Harmon from Michigan State. And sure, Ohio State has had a great transfer portal cycle. There's no doubt about it. But this is curious to me, to say the least, because I feel like Oregon got better. And a move like this, I don't think is reflective of a bunch of money coming in on Ohio State plus 1.5. I think it's still really early for lines to move because of that. I think this is Vegas moving the line because they feel like it should be adjusted. And it's a pretty bold thing for Vegas to do, to allow people to bet on Oregon. Go check out our friends at FanDuel if you feel as strongly about this as I do, by the way. It's a pretty bold thing to do, to look at an Oregon team that has lost one time in the last 2 seasons at Autzen Stadium. And it's not a place where they lose very often. It is a place where Oregon has become accustomed to winning. And the one team that got him, why don't I just call it the 2 guys that got him, were Michael Penix and Kalen DeBoer. They're not walking through that door. Now, Chip Kelly is I think he'll be a great offensive coordinator for Ohio State. Ryan Day, very good head coach. I don't think either one of them are Kalen DeBoer, who has outcoached Lanning 3 times in the games that they have met, whereas Ryan Day got outcoached by Mario Cristobal pretty badly. Oregon won that game in Columbus without Kayvon Thibodeau. Is Ohio State a great team? Yep. Do they have one of the best 5 rosters in college football? Yep. So does Oregon, though. And to look at the Ducks and say, nah, they're not worthy of the home field advantage there. They should be a home underdog at Autzen? When Ohio State doesn't even know who their quarterback is right now. Look, it's probably going to end up being Will Howard, the Kansas State transfer. And I think Will Howard is solid. He's also never had a season in his career in which he's completed above 61% of his passes. That's what he is. He's a solid, serviceable, capable quarterback. He's a lot closer to Kyle McCord that they had last year, though, who wasn't that great. I think Howard is better. He's a lot closer to him than he is to, say, I don't know, just as a random quarterback example, Dylan Gabriel, for instance. So whoever, you've got Oregon at home with a great roster on both sides of the ball, and you've got the better quarterback who's got more starts in his career, who's been more productive, and has put up better numbers. That across the board, that's insane value to me. I think Oregon's going to win that football game. I really do. And it's going to be the game that everyone circles on Oregon's calendar in 2024, or one of them, right? Washington, Oregon State, of course, are going to be in the mix. But Ohio State is one of those games, along with Michigan, where you go, that's a big game. That is a big, big game. And Wisconsin's another one. Frankly, just about half of Oregon's games are going to have a high level of interest and intrigue for the Ducks. I wouldn't sleep on Boise State either because, fun fact, don't think Oregon's actually beaten Boise State before, at least not in my lifetime. Every time Oregon plays Boise, it seems to go wrong. It's at Autzen Stadium this year, but they won the last time they were there. So, it's just one of those things. But, of course, this is a different year, different coaches, different players, special teams, special plays, special players. Okay, so if you know what that means, send me a message because I find it to be hilarious. Anyway, I just was so curious, and I would be more than a little intrigued to talk to whoever's setting these lines to say, what about the spring transfer portal window led you to think, yeah, okay, we need to shift this line by 3 points in favor of Ohio State and favor them at Autzen? And the other thing that is curious about all this, amidst several things, Ohio State didn't add anybody in the transfer portal in the spring. Now, they've had a good transfer portal class. They have brought in impact players like Quinshon Judkins, and Julian Sayin is reportedly in the mix to be the starting quarterback this year. I don't think they expected him to make an impact this year, but maybe he's ready to do so. He was a one-time Alabama Crimson Tide member, and they brought in Caleb Downs. That dude is a beast. That dude. You talk about players that I would love for Oregon to have on their roster, Caleb Downs would be one of them because Caleb Downs would fit almost anywhere, but especially with Oregon and the relative lack of safety depth compared to the rest of the roster. So I'm just wondering. Oregon adds an all-conference caliber defensive tackle to solidify a position that didn't have a high-end proven starter in it, and the reaction from the sports books is, we're going to shift this line 3 points in favor of Ohio State. I can assure you I'm not feeling that way. So if you saw this, as I did, I'd tell you go bet that 1.5. I do not think that's going to last because what I think will end up happening, certainly Ohio State will expect to be undefeated going into that game. Oregon should certainly be undefeated going into that game. Your first 5 games are Idaho, Boise State, Oregon State, UCLA, or at UCLA, and then Michigan State. So you play a good chunk of games there at Autzen Stadium to begin the year, and you're at Oregon State, but Oregon should be 5-0. They've got better rosters. They are better teams. The program's in a better state than all 5 of those teams. Ohio State should be rolling as well. And I think once Oregon goes 5-0, that line will shift back because on a neutral field, I think these teams are pretty even. You've got a more experienced head coach in Ryan Day compared to Dan Lanning, though obviously I think Lanning is very, very good. You've got a better quarterback at Oregon. You probably have a better overall. It's close. It's close. At some point, I'll get Jay Stevens of Locked On Ohio State back on here to talk about where things sit after spring football. But I'll lean head coach Ohio State just because of the experience. But I think Ryan Day is very good. I think Ryan Day is very good. Don't know if he's Kalen DeBoer, though. And so far, that's the only guy that's had Dan Lanning's number. And I think when people think about Lanning and, his in-game coaching and being ready on game day and whatnot, they think about those Washington games. They ignore the Utah games. Or like Utah 2022. Dan Lanning's best coaching job to date. Utah 2022. Bo Nix has got one leg. Cam Rising's healthy. And he outduels Kyle Whittingham. That's a tough feat. Tough feat. And he pulled that one off. So I think Lanning's only continuing to get better as a coach. You got a more experienced guy on the other side in Ryan Day. You got a better quarterback at Oregon. They've got the better running back room. I like Oregon's receiver room more. In the trenches, I think that's pretty close to a wash. Like when you don't see a major advantage for one team in an area, and look, I don't even know that Dylan Gabriel to Will Howard is a gap the size of the Grand Canyon or anything. I'd certainly prefer Gabriel over Howard in that conversation. When you have all those factors lining up, typically the home team gets the edge. And maybe the sports books just don't know what Autzen Stadium's all about, and Oregon fans will just have to show them. But the Ducks, underdogs right now against Ohio State, and I can't quite figure it out. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments or hit me up on X. Oregon's latest commitment. What does Dierre Hill Jr. bring to the table? Who else do you need to know about in the class of 2025? That's coming up next. And coming up right now is eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Oregon's latest 2025 commitment is a running back. Or is he? Brian Smith, Locked On Insider here, joining me on this Cruton segment brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs as always. Look, Dierre Hill Jr., Brian, does literally everything. He had interceptions, a passing touchdown, a receiving touchdown. He ran the ball. He does special teams. Football player. Athlete is an appropriate description for him, but running back is where he projects in college, yes?
Maybe.
Okay, great.
His film is a lot of fun to watch. After like the third one, I remember saying to myself, whoever the coach is that decided to kick it to him should be demoted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get the film of the week before and the week before that, and you see him weaving through guys, and when he hits a little crease, your guy has the angle, and he still runs by him untouched. That's a sign automatically. It says, do not kick to. And I don't know what's going on in Illinois, but they have some people that are not getting film or they're really dumb because that's just ridiculous. And he ran by everybody. It looked like Bo Jackson on Tecmo Bowl. You know, Illinois high school football is just okay, but like it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And like where he's at, it's just okay, but still, I mean, like don't kick him the ball. And then when he runs it, somebody on the edge would always lose contain. It's not good. It's not good at all. So yeah, you could play him at running back, but in today's game, depending on what kind of offense you have, like Lincoln Riley's offense, for instance, or anything similar to it, similar what the Ducks run, you play him at slot or at least move him into that position. I don't care what you call him. Throw him the football. I assume he's pretty good at catching it, and you can teach him routes like anybody else. Good luck. You can always run jet motion with him. You can always give him a few handoffs, but I just think he's an athlete. One of my all-time favorite players in college football to watch is Desmond Howard. Another one's Rocket Ismail. Guys like that could get reverses or take a 3-yard hitch and make guys miss and score. That's what this kid, I'm not saying he's quite to those levels, but he's in that realm. Like his foot speed and explosiveness, that first step, it's like, holy cow, he was blessed. This is an old school Chip Kelly kind of running back recruit. It really, I'm sure you.
No. I've absolutely had that thought. I think positionally, he'll play a DeAnthony Thomas spot where like most of his work comes out of the backfield, but you're going to put him in different types of motion. You're going to get him the ball in screen situations. You can throw the ball down the field to him every now and then. Is he going to have, one-on-one back shoulder throws to him and go get a jump ball? No, that's not what he does. He's 5'10", 180 pounds. I mean, that was, much more the build of LaMichael James and Kenyon Barner than the Thomas Tyners and Royce Freemans of the world, or Bucky the last couple of years, Jordan James. Like he's built in a different way. And I love what you said about the Bo Jackson Tecmo Bowl, because that's the most apt. If you understand that reference, first of all, go watch the Family Guy clip because it's hilarious. But if you understand that reference, that's what it looks like with him. Now, my question when I see that, Brian, and I want your thoughts on this, what's the caliber of competition he's going up against in Illinois? Because there were times where he would emerge from the pack or split a double team, and he certainly looks fast, but I was bewildered watching his highlight film going, how is he getting to the next level sometimes? Is he just that fast, or is he going up against just okay competition?
Both.
Okay.
Some of the kids that he's playing, I know some of the schools, like, they don't have a chance. And that's another reason I'm going to say it again. Don't kick it to him.
Yeah.
Go getting the ball in the open field. He's faster than anybody you have by a mile. Don't put your guys in bad spots. And they did repeatedly, and he kept scoring touchdowns. So the key with him, just like anything else, is you got to contain him, because once he hits the corner, even at the collegiate level, there will be DBs that he outruns. This is a legitimately elite athlete. Like, he could probably compete with some of the guys on the Oregon track team at some point. He's like that kind of guy. If he wanted to go that route, just focus on track, he could do it. So yeah, I'm sure Oregon is really happy to get him, and like, hey, let's figure we can come up with 20 different ways to get him the football. That's got to be fun for a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, this is the first running back commit for Rashad Samples since taking over as Oregon's running back coach. And I think it's a pretty solid get. You look at the list of schools that he was also considering. This is a really, really good sign for Samples taking over in that running back coach's position. But, my comp for him, because he plays on the other side of the ball, I almost went with Jalen Redd, but I think he's kind of like Charles Nelson. I think he's got a little bit more home run speed. I don't expect you to remember any of those guys specifically. They were slightly more obscure, but just like line him up in the slot and either have him run a route or bring him in motion, hand the ball off, an abbreviated motion in the backfield, and then he runs on a sweep. Like, I think those are all areas where he can excel. But you look at his speed, home run hitter. That's what you want to think here with Dierre Hill Jr. is he's got the top end speed to make a big play, and that's where he can thrive. And certainly I'd be curious to see what he can do in the return game as well. But not the only recruit to keep an eye on here. He's the only latest 2025 commitment. But let's talk about Michael Terry, who is quite the football player himself, 5-star athlete on the 24/7 Sports composite in the class of 2025. Where does Oregon stand with him? Who else is in the mix?
This is another bizarre list of schools. Kid from the San Antonio area, but it's A&M. Okay, that's cool. But Nebraska and Oregon, those are like the other three. And then Texas is also trying to be involved. It's really hard to pick. I know that some people think Nebraska is in there, right there for the top. I'm like, when was the last time they even had a winning season? So like, how do I project on something? I was reading something about it, and I'm like, really? Because
they're going to be good this year, for what it's worth. They'll be a good football team. Not great, but they'll be good.
They're going to make a bowl. I want to hear it now. Okay.
Yes.
It'd be good for college
football. No. I think they're winning 8 games.
Okay, well, that's fine. I need to see it because Nebraska stunk.
No, that's fine. That's totally fair. That's totally fair. Our Big Ten brethren over there as in Omaha? No, not Omaha. Lincoln. Wrong Nebraska city. But they got Dylan Raiola starting, and I think that's better than what they had at quarterback last year when they started Jeff Sims.
I'm not going to make any comments on that.
Yeah.
But this is a family show. So I need to just put it like this. They need to get a kid like this to change the trajectory of the program. But, I mean, he can go to A&M, which is local. It's like 3 hours maybe from his house. And then you got Oregon, which always seems to get the random Texas kids. And he can stay in state and still go to Texas, too. I have no idea. I've read different things on him just in the last 48 hours. But he's 6'3", 190 pounds or whatever, and can fly. About 210. He can fly. This is a kid that's going to have as many options as he wants. Watch out for Oregon is my gut, because they always get a random kid like this out of Texas. I know that probably makes you happy, but like, I just think he would have committed to one of the in-state schools already. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, everybody knew who this kid was. He's a national recruit. He's got an offer from every school in the country. Why hadn't he committed to one of the in-state schools? And then again, maybe Nebraska kind of pulls the upset.
Michael Terry III, that's a name to watch. Last one for you, Brian. Trajan Odom. Along that defensive line, which we talk about a lot with Dan Lanning, Tosh Lupoy, and Tony Tuioti, they've done a masterful job. Trajan Odom, another guy who, along with Michael Terry III, is coming in for a visit this weekend. Why we're mentioning them here on today's show.
This is maybe the most bizarre visit list of all time that I've seen. North Carolina kid, just outside of Charlotte, SC, UCLA, Oregon, and Ohio State. I mean, it makes total sense. I mean,
it's Big Ten country, Brian.
Oh boy, here we go. It might be in 6 months. It might be.
No, it might be. It is in July 1st, 2024. That will officially be all Big Ten country there: Los Angeles, Eugene, and Columbus.
Well, I'm talking about North Carolina. I mean, it's just like,
Oh,
that's
that could
great.
be in 6 months too.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh, you're totally right.
So I just saying, at one point, LSU was trending with it. They're not even in its top 4 now. Like, this is a kid I followed for a while, and he's really good. He's a pure defensive tackle, 6'4", 270, 280. He's a kid that's got an offer from everybody. Where's Clemson? Where's Florida State? Where's Georgia?
Where's Miami?
Yeah, I mean, like all the schools that, they recruit Charlotte. Notre Dame's not in there. Michigan's not in there either. Penn State's not in there. At least there's Ohio State. So they're the one that is, quote unquote, the most likely based on predictions. But with the kid from Charlotte looking at 3 schools officially from the old school Pac-12, my oh my, this is great. I'm curious to see where he goes. I'll gamble with your money on the pick, but nothing else.
It's always easy to be generous and aggressive with somebody else's money.
That's right. I like it.
Yeah. Brian Smith, our Locked On Recruiting Insider here at the network, brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. Brian, thanks as always.
Thank you, sir.
Speaking of the new look Big Ten, question about that I'm going to answer coming up next. First, this episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever you're looking for. They've got exclusive in-app deals where you can save even more, so go check them out today. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, a couple of mailbag questions here to wrap up today's show. YouTube comments or X, formerly known as Twitter, at @McLaughlinCFB, at Locked On Ducks. Those are the handles. DMs and mentions both wide open. If you want priority access and all sorts of other perks, go join the flock over at Subtext. Link in the description below wherever you listen to or watch this show. This from Bud. In looking at Oregon's football schedule in the Big Ten this year, we play at Wisconsin the week after playing Maryland at home. It's a weird thing to say, but it's true. Well, Wisconsin has a bye the week before. Is there any data that shows the advantage for having a bye the week before a game while the other team does not? And combined with a 2-hour time zone change, what are your thoughts on Oregon chances in that game? So I did a little digging on this particular notion about a bye week, because when it comes to the playoffs in the NFL, you hear this conversation about rest versus rust. Which would you rather have? Would you rather be in rhythm or would you rather be fully rested? I think in the NFL it goes back and forth. But last season in college football, a gambling website had the following numbers. Quote, coming into this season, teams were 56-70 against the spread, coming off a loss and the week off. And an even uglier 28-43 against the spread when the second game was on the road. On the flip side, teams coming off a win and a bye, 114-84-4 against the spread. Now, that's not the straight up record, that's just against the spread. But that's indicative of how teams play compared to the expectations. And I think in college football, you typically get teams that are playing better off of a bye. And Oregon's got a bye, I'm pretty sure, before the Washington game, and the Huskies do as well. And by the way, that was the case last year. And you know what happened? That was a high-level football game. High-level football game in Seattle. Unfortunately, Oregon lost, but not a surprise that both teams played well. When you look at the best coaches in college football, you know where they have great records? Off a bye and in bowl games, because they have more time to prepare. And when coaches are in season, they're not seeing their families a whole lot. They are just nose to the grindstone, put their heads down, get in their office, barricade the doors, go to work, study film, talk to players, coaches, everything like that. That's what it's like. So yeah, I think there's absolutely an advantage to having a bye before a particular game. I expect Oregon to win that game. I don't think it's going to be easy. Wisconsin has a win total of 7.5, according to our friends over at FanDuel, and I don't think they have done crazy things this offseason. Luke Fickell, though, is the coach who was at Cincinnati when they went to the playoff a couple of years ago. Guy's a good football coach. He is a good football coach. Does that mean that he's going to outcoach Dan Lanning? I don't think so. I think Oregon's got a lot of talent there. Could come down to how Tyler Van Dyke plays, the former Miami quarterback who is now at Wisconsin. But certainly there is an advantage to Wisconsin getting to be off a bye and Oregon not. That's just how the scheduling works sometimes. And you can't sit and complain about it. You just got to take the punches and roll with whatever you get because you can't change it. Like there's no way to change it or say, hey, can we move this game here? Like, nope, schedules are done. They're set in stone. So, combining that with a 2-hour time zone change, I don't think that's going to be as much of a factor depending on the game time. If you play that game, earlier in the day, that could feel really, really early to Oregon players. But if you play it later at night, it might be a lot colder. Weather could be a factor. You're in Madison at Camp Randall in November. It could certainly feel like a true Big Ten football game. But I think for the Ducks, they are the better team by a pretty sizable amount. I think like Wisconsin to me feels like a tier 2 team in the Big Ten this year, and Oregon is tier 1. Oregon's best or second best in the Big Ten going into this season. So, yeah, I think it's an advantage for Wisconsin, but I don't think it's enough to throw Oregon. I still expect the Ducks to be favored in that game. By how many points? I don't know, probably 4 or 5. That would probably be my estimate there. And the data would say you should take Wisconsin, and Oregon wins the game by a field goal. But just winning, that'll do the job. Last one here for today. Spencer, this is from Doug. Spencer, every day are here. Rip our Pac-12. Indeed. R.I.P. Sweet Prince. But if it hadn't gone bye-bye, would we still have gotten this many of the portal and high school kids this year? Or is the Big Ten Conference affiliation helping us do all this now? P.S. What's your handicap? Love the show, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, go Ducks. That's true every day right there. Listen start to finish. I love that. So I'll get to the golf thing in a moment. But it depends on which version of the Pac-12 you're talking about. So Oregon is having all this success in high school recruiting, transfer portal recruiting, getting big-time guys like Derek Harmon from the Big Ten coming over from Michigan State at the defensive tackle spot. Really excited about what he can bring to the table. Jabbar Muhammad from Washington, like lots of transfers to be excited about. I think the answer is yes, Oregon still be getting them with the original Pac-12, the full Pac-12. If you take out USC, UCLA, don't know if it would be quite this high. Because then the Pac-12, though still deep and probably a stronger league top to bottom, if you kept the 10 teams without the LA schools, you'd have a better football conference than the Big 12 or the ACC. That is an objective fact when you look at where the teams were at last year. If you still had Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, Jed Fish at Arizona, although Fish would probably be up at Washington regardless, but Smith would still be at Oregon State. You'd have Brent Brennan at Arizona. They'd still be in a solid spot. Colorado's improving. You'd have Oregon, Washington, Utah as your perennial, flag-bearing conference members and their flagship programs. That's the term I'm looking for. Yeah, I think Oregon would be just fine. I mean, you look at what, and this is especially true if the Pac-12 had never broken up. If USC and UCLA had never left and everything was going the way that it should be in college football, it's not, but that's just the way of the world, I guess. Oregon is absolutely recruiting at this level because the Pac-12 would be viewed as what it was a year ago, which was the deepest conference in the country. It was ridiculous how good the Pac-12 was last year. It went out with a bang. It was the best the conferences had been in about a decade, and they had a bunch of really good teams in there. When USC and Lincoln Riley, with the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, are going 7-5, you know you got a great conference. And yeah, USC's defense was atrocious, but they weren't that good the year prior, and they went 11-1. Utah, man, death, taxes, and Utah football. So yeah, I think being in the Big Ten is helping, but being in the Pac-12 with the original 12 teams wouldn't have hurt. Being in a Pac-12 with 10 teams or 9 teams with San Diego State, might not look the exact same, but I still think it would be pretty darn close. As you mentioned in your question, Doug, I am a big golfer. I would not describe myself as playing good golf at the moment by my standards, but I'll end today, because he asked, with a subtle flex. I am a scratch golfer. So if any of you ever want to meet up and play, by all means, I am here for it. I'm playing all the time. I played earlier today. I'm going to play tomorrow. Probably going to play the next day too. That's just the way I enjoy spending my time, in addition to talking to all of you. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, go Ducks.